My name is Jodi Innerfield, and I'm here today to walk you through 10 red flags to avoid for a successful product launch. But before I get started, I want to make sure to mention that all thoughts and opinions in this presentation are my own and not my employer's. Now, as a product marketer, I've launched my fair share of products and features. I've been at companies as large as Salesforce, where I am today, and Amazon, and I've helped tiny one-person direct-to-consumer startups with marketing strategies. But during my last few years at Salesforce in particular, my job has turned me into a launch machine. In 1 year, I was part of 4 launches, bringing 9 distinct products to market, a true product launch bootcamp. Now, I could sit here and walk you through my framework for launching these products, but I thought it would be a bit more fun if instead I talked you through the red flags that really should have warned me that something wasn't right. So, with that, let's dive into the first red flag. Let's skip a pilot and go straight to GA. Now, why might that be a problem? Pilots let customers test out features and functionality before they start paying. This is where product teams get to work out the kinks before releasing them to the masses. And as marketers, this is our opportunity to do 2 key things. The first is to get customer insights for quotes and testimonials, which really add credibility to the launch. And it helps us make sure that the product is actually ready to go. Now, without a pilot, I don't have customer quotes to give to the press. I don't have a customer story to share with my sales teams to lend validity to my product launch. And really, my product team is still building the rocket as I'm launching it. So I don't even get the opportunity to get really solid collateral and assets that I need to make a launch a success. For example, how can I get a really solid demo video if the product is still being built as I'm trying to put together my launch strategy? So, what can you do to avoid this red flag? First, make sure you articulate the value add a pilot brings to the launch itself so that your product team understands that pilots aren't just for them, they help the launch be more successful for marketing as well. And second, make sure you set really clear expectations around what is and isn't feasible if there is no pilot. That demo video, for example, not really possible to get that in the hands of your sales teams or your customers if you can't even demo the product before it goes live. Which brings us to our second red flag. We don't have time to test the name or the message. As marketers, we often live and work in an echo chamber. It's important to just admit that. We might pride ourselves on deeply knowing and understanding our customers, but we are also human. We only think we know exactly how our customers will respond to our product or our message, which is why it is so important to test, test, test. Now, what happens when you don't test with either the right customers or even a diverse group of people? Well, let's take Kim Kardashian, for example. Kim Kardashian launched Kimono. Now, with a little naming research, she probably would have learned that not only is this name not reflective of the products that she's launching, it's also culturally insensitive. Very quickly, Twitter had a firestorm of feedback for Kim about how problematic this name was. Now, if she and her team had done a little bit more testing or had a more diverse group of people to test with, they probably would have seen this feedback without having to launch this name. Or a favorite business school case study, Bic for Her. Now, if Bic had gone to market with these as pastel pens instead of pens for women, they probably would not be studied by every MBA student ever. Now, if you ever need a good laugh, I highly recommend taking a look at the Amazon product reviews, a few of which you'll see here, for these Bic for Her pens. This is a really good example of how taking time before a launch to listen to your customers' feedback about your message or about your name in the example of kimono will really help you work out the kinks in everything, just like the importance of a pilot. Product pilots are for testing the product, Message and name testing is important to make sure you're really going to stick the landing on your name and your message when you make this launch a reality. Red flag number 3, we'll launch first and train the field later. At some companies, marketers really are magicians. We can do incredible feats of magic and astound audiences. But what we cannot do is have a successful marketing launch without an informed sales team. That part's just impossible. Sales teams are integral to your launch success. Whether you're a B2B product and need to train your sales teams to understand why a product matters to customers, or you are a B2C product and you need pre-sales and conversion from your customers, you can't call your launch a success based on press mentions and email open rates. You need to sell something or pre-sell something. You probably are doing this launch to make money. Now, I learned this red flag the hard way. In May 2020, I was part of the team that helped launch work.com. This was a first to market offering to help organizations return to their workplaces safely during COVID. We built the solution in a matter of weeks, and we had very little turnaround time between product development and GA. But we also needed to announce this really soon, both because customers were going to be returning to the office and we thought they would need a product, or we thought they would be returning to the office very soon, and we knew that they would need a product to help them, and because we didn't want a competitor to get to market first. Now, I'll talk about launching before we're ready in our next red flag. So early in May, we did a full court press PR with every major news outlet, with our CEO, all over the place. We had a full demand gen plan, social takeovers. This was considered a hit externally. It was a massive, massive product launch. But internally, this launch was total chaos. Our sales teams, we didn't have time to tell them that this was coming. We spent so much time focused on the external elements of this launch that we didn't have time to tell them what we were launching or inform them of what was to come. So sales had no idea how to handle the flood of inbound customer questions. They didn't know anything about the product, and yet they were expected to be experts. And this product hadn't even launched yet. There were so many questions that I had to put an out of office up on nights and weekends so people knew not to expect an answer right away. So I hope you learned from this red flag that the field and sales are your friends. Make sure that they know in advance what you're launching and why, so that they can help you make your launch a success. Red flag number 4. Let's announce now so we're first to market, even if we're not ready. I mentioned previously that with work.com, we announced our product early so we could be first to market. Well, not that we would have made a different decision at the time, but that should have been a huge red flag for me as to what was to come. If you've been to business school, you've probably heard of the first mover advantage. So listen, I understand why being first to market is essential. But there's an important distinction between being the first to announce something and having a product in market first that your customers can actually use and your sales teams can sell. Making an announcement ahead of a live product may excite the press and get you lots of web traffic, but that will all mean nothing if you don't actually have something to sell in a quick follow-up. So listen, I also hear the other side of the argument that making an announcement drums up interest, you can get a wait list going and build anticipation. And yes, there are definite benefits to making your product launch announcement only well ahead of a product launch. But you really want to make sure that your timeline between announcement and GA is reasonable, 3 to 6 months max. That way you can continue to build momentum and people haven't forgotten about this announcement by the time your product actually goes live. You also need to have enough collateral and resources available for your sales team so that they can have meaningful conversations with your customers. Or if you are a B2C product, have enough resources available on your website so that customers can learn more and get really excited. And finally, whether you're B2B or B2C, you need an action for your customers to take so that you can measure launch success pre-GA. So that might be a sign-up CTA, where you can keep track of interested customers. Or it might be a webinar you can drive people to where they can learn more. Maybe it's an event. Make sure you back up your announcement with something meaningful if you can't back it up yet with the actual product. All right, halfway mark, red flag number 5. Our only goal for this launch is to launch it. This may sound so silly, you can't even imagine someone ever saying this, but trust me, it happens. Now, when I hear this, I believe the first step is to define what is a launch, and then I want to know what success looks like. So, what could someone mean by a launch? Uh, Different products, features, or types of businesses might prioritize different marketing channels and activities. So, a B2B product, for example, might prioritize a press release, an event, and sales enablement as part of their launch. Now, launches have many, many, many different parts of it, but maybe those are the 3 that are most important. At Salesforce, for example, we tend to launch a lot of products at events like Dreamforce or Trailhead DX. That's where we have captured our customers' attention. We know that our sales teams can have meaningful conversations as follow-ups with our customers after a keynote presentation. We'll put out a press release, and we'll also, again, obviously make sure our sales teams are super, super informed. B2C product launches. So this Aura 3 ring, for example, I'm a big fan of the Aura ring. For that product launch, they had an email blast to all their existing customers. They had a really great social media takeover, which would hit existing customers and prospects. And of course, they had a landing page up where you could either pre-order the ring or you could shop now once it becomes available. Finally, you have new features. So whether you're B2B or B2C, for new feature launches, often an in-app guidance or an in-app message is a really great way to notify your customers of what is new, and it's a new action they can take or something that's newly available to them. You could also do an email to existing customers and maybe a blog post that would cover your prospects in addition to your existing customers. But as you can see, there are so many different things that can go into a launch, and these each have very different metrics and KPIs. So, really important to ask your stakeholders what they mean by a launch and what their goal or metric for success is, because that goal or metric is success might be what helps define what they mean by a launch. Okay, red flag number 6. Let's launch with this price and just adjust it later. So when I was at Amazon, they often spoke a lot about decisions that are called one-way doors or two-way doors. A one-way door is the decision that once you make it is very hard to go back. You can only go one way through that door. A two-way door, on the other hand, is a decision that's easy to just unwind. In case it turns out to be the wrong decision, you can just walk right back through that door. More often than not, pricing is a one-way door. Because if you price too low, raising prices on customers might cause frustration and churn. You've also probably left money on the table right from the start. But on the other hand, if you're pricing too high, you've probably already pigeonholed your product in the market as enterprise or exclusive and may face confusion or hesitation internally and externally to lower prices. So, similar to pilots and messaging and naming, it's really important to take the time to test and get your pricing strategy right so that you can make sure your launch is successful. So, really, I think if there's one theme I've already identified for you in red flags for your launches, it's when someone says we don't have time. Taking time pre launch to build a robust pricing and packaging strategy will really help set you up for success in the long term. Trust me, it is worth it to take a little bit of extra time before you launch to get these pieces right. Red flag number 7. What do you mean? What use case did we build this feature for? In an ideal world, product development doesn't happen in a vacuum. Product managers will work alongside UX and research, and of course, product marketers to identify what customer needs can be met with a new product or a new feature. But as product marketers, we know there is no such thing as an ideal world. And sometimes a PM comes to you with a feature that they're ready to launch that doesn't quite, you don't really know what it does, or it doesn't quite meet a specific need for your customers that you've heard that they had. If you can't identify a job to be done that your feature or your product helps accomplish, it's probably not worth launching. If you haven't heard about jobs to be done in that framework before, I highly recommend taking a look. The jobs to be done framework helps you identify clearly the type of customer that you're going after, what they need, and how your product or feature helps meet their need. So it's a great thing to take a pause and say this kind of framework to yourself. So we believe that this customer will be more successful while doing this job to be done, when we enable this outcome by improving this functionality. And functionality would be your new product or feature. And we expect to see this success criteria as evidence of this improvement. So here you can see the jobs to be done framework really helps you identify who your customer is, what they need to do, what they need to achieve, what the product or feature is that will help them achieve their goal. And then those success criteria are really what both your product management and your product marketing team need to look towards and really start to market as, here's what you're going to achieve when you use this product or feature. So what, might you ask, is an example of a product that maybe really didn't have a clear job to be done when it launched? Google Glass. I know we pick on Google Glass a lot, but it works in this example because it really never found traction. Not because it isn't cool. I think augmented reality, as we know, is really part of the zeitgeist, and now especially a very cool idea. But these glasses really didn't solve a clear problem or have a clear use case to begin with that was enough of a problem for customers. Now, after flopping as a consumer product, Google got a little bit more traction, positioning Google Glass for manufacturing use cases. So actually, I think manufacturers and warehouse employees sort of found this niche for Google. I don't know that Google directly went after this market, but in manufacturing use cases, workers on the factory floor could really benefit from having augmented reality in front of them on glasses to help them complete these day-to-day tasks. So this is an example where, launched separately as standalone, there just wasn't a job to be done, wasn't a clear use case for this product. But if you can identify what market, what segment this is useful for, you're going to have much more success for your product launch. And that's because the most successful product and feature launches have clear use cases identified from the outset. That's how you as product marketers can have really crisp, clear value props for your messaging and your content. Because if something's not valuable to a customer, they are going to not buy it. All right, red flag number 8. Our competitor's product is better, but we still need to launch this. As a product marketer, the number one thing that I need to know is what makes our product different and better. Differentiation is at the heart of messaging and positioning, because how can I convince a customer to buy or use my product if I can't articulate what is meaningfully different or better? The reality, however, is that sometimes you just need to launch something that is just barely or not even feature parity just to keep up with the competition. So Microsoft must not have felt too great about launching Bing after Google had already established dominance. And more recently, Instagram's launch of Reels, everybody saw that as a direct response to TikTok, its much younger and hipper competitor. And I understand it's not the most fun thing to launch a product or a feature that isn't different or better. So as product marketers, how can we lean into what unique benefits our product as a whole offers that maybe the competitor doesn't? So what I mean by this is take a look at, are there different markets or customer segments that we can target that are better suited for our suite of products based on our existing customer base? So for example, millennials who are big Instagram users, myself included, who hadn't already downloaded TikTok, were a perfect segment to target Instagram's Reels towards, because we didn't have anything to compare it to. We weren't users of TikTok. So Reels is something exciting and different for that segment, even if it's not exciting and different in the market as a whole. So again, if a product isn't what's meaningfully different, how can you find a customer segment for whom your product is meaningfully different? That is one way to turn that red flag into a green light. So we are now at the home stretch. I've got red flag number 9. We only need product marketers to make this launch successful. As flattering as this is, I think every product marketer listening will agree with me, or I hope you'll agree with me, that no product marketer can be successful in a vacuum. Product marketing takes a village of other talented marketers and other marketing adjacent teams in order to make a launch successful. So when I launched work.com, for example, our launch team was not just the product marketing team. All of these adjacent teams that you see here were required to make our launch a success. We worked hand in hand with our enablement team to create incredible enablement content to prepare our sales teams. Our competitive team was really important to help us as we nail down our messaging and positioning. I even have teams that aren't on here that should be represented, like customer insights. Um, at smaller companies, some of these roles might fall to product marketers. So at one company I worked at, we didn't have a separate enablement team or a separate customer marketing team. So those were my responsibility. Or maybe you outsource some of these roles like PR or social or customer research. That's okay. The point is to remember that launching requires many channels, many tactics, and many different teams and work streams to be successful. So if a PM or somebody comes to you and says, like, I just need one product marketer to help with this launch, that's a red flag. You're going to need to bring in other marketers and other teams as part of your larger launch effort to truly be successful. Finally, I have saved the dooziest for last. Red flag number 10, we don't need marketing at all. We can just launch this ourselves. And this one makes me sad. Luckily, I personally have not experienced this one firsthand, but I include this because if you ever come across an organization that believes that they can push a product or a feature live without product marketing's help, my first instinct is to run. But if you have more patience than I do and don't run away immediately, I'd suggest asking yourself a few questions. Why doesn't your organization see product marketing's value? What role does product marketing play within the product lifecycle? Launching a product or a feature without marketing is like a tree falling in the forest with no one around to see it. How will someone know about your product or feature if marketing isn't involved? This is something that I think is probably unique to early stage startups where product teams have been building and launching products without product marketing, and now someone's come in as the first product marketer. It's really important to identify ways to highlight product marketing's impact on your organization. How can your efforts impact sales and increase and improve the user experience? Are you bringing in important competitive and market insights? Are you a conduit to the sales teams so that you can get more customer feedback back to product and UX teams? Do you help train the sales teams so that they can understand better the value of your products? Really find ways to articulate product marketing's worth in terms of the organization's goals and make sure that product marketing is seen as a strategic partner in the business. So this might be something that I hope doesn't come across that you don't see this red flag maybe at your first product launch, but maybe this is something as you're interviewing for a company, maybe it's an early stage startup where you're the first product marketing hire, you can start to understand some of the answers to these questions so you can make sure that this red flag is never something that you have to experience yourself. So with that, I hope that I have given you a little bit of insight to help you turn some of the red flags that I've experienced in my career into green flags. So make sure you're articulating the value add of pilots. Take time to test and get feedback, whether that's on your message or your name. Enable the field early and often. Have CTAs in your launch and ways for your customers to really learn more. Align what a launch actually means and identify what those KPIs are that mean your launches are successful. Take time to get pricing right the first time. Identify the jobs to be done so you can make sure that your product or feature aligns and solves a specific use case for your customer. Find out the audience that will find your product meaningful. So even if your product isn't better than what's out there, who is it better for? Bring the full marketing team along. No product marketer is an island. And finally, make sure product marketing is a strategic partner at your organization. So thank you so much once again for taking some time to learn from me, learn from the red flags and mistakes that I've experienced so that you can make sure that your next product launch is successful. Bye.